Welcome to another video.
I've just been under the knife here in the USA. Surprisingly, it was a Chinese doctor, and I wanted to talk about it because there were a lot of highs and a lot of lows in this particular situation. So I don't particularly want to talk about the whole experience of my surgery and what happened, but I'll add that in here. What I really want to talk about are the experiences of dealing with the healthcare system in the USA. I am currently recovering. This is my first time out the house. I'm not feeling perfect, so if I'm not great on camera, please forgive me. But I basically had a very rapid onset of acute appendicitis, and I had to, I stuck with it for about 12 hours or so of like absolute pain, and eventually realized that I had to go in and get it sorted out. Now, I'm going to start with the major hurdles of the healthcare system in America, and that is insurance, health insurance. Health insurance here is incredibly complicated. I feel like you have to be a lawyer to understand how it works. You've got so many different companies, but then also so many different kinds of plans. And here in California, you've got Covered California, which then, takes care of something, and then you've got your different health insurance companies which also somehow have to tie together, and it's incredibly complicated. It's very annoying, and trust me, especially if you're not used to the whole American tax system and the American way of how things work, it takes a lot to get your head around it. So anyway, when I finally decided that I needed to go into the hospital, on the back of my medical insurance card, it has a 24-hour nurse advice hotline. So I thought, let me call that to kind of get a second opinion, kind of make sure if I really should go in. Because I'd already more or less made up my mind, but I thought that they could at least point me in the right direction. So I called up the nurse hotline, and here's the biggest problem I think with the United States is everybody is worried about being sued. Litigation obviously is a huge issue here, so everyone has to cover their ass, and this makes things incredibly painful. So you have to go through like recorded disclaimers about, oh, this call's being recorded, and if you have this, you better seek this somewhere, etc. Anyway, I finally get a hold of someone. It took quite a while, and I asked her advice. Hey, these are my symptoms. Do you think I should go into the hospital? So rather than giving me a direct answer, she first had to say, we are not qualified to give you a definitive answer that can be substituted for a visit to your medical practitioner, etc., etc., giving me this whole long disclaimer where I'm dying of agony. It's not a good thing. That really pissed me off, to be honest. I told her on the phone, listen, I'm not holding you liable for anything. Throw me a bone here. What do you think? She said, well, based on what you've told me, I would suggest that you do go in, type thing. So that's all good and well. But then now this is the kicker, is I asked her, because I've never been in before to the hospital except when my wife gave birth to our daughter. I asked her if she could tell me which hospitals my medical insurance covers. Could she give me some hospitals? And again, she said she couldn't. She said that their system sometimes is outdated, not entirely sure. She'd have to see if she could try, and it was the most frustrating thing, because don't forget, to get to this point to talk to her, I had already had to put in my name, my insurance ID number, my social security, the last few digits of my social security, all this just to get to this point. She has all my information there, but it won't tell her what hospitals my insurance covers. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, so instead of trying to battle with this system that I don't know and deal with this absolute ridiculous thing on the phone for an hour, because she kept putting me on hold while she see if she can check this and see if she can check that, I decided that we'd just go to the hospital where my daughter was born, because I know that the insurance covered that, and it's quite far away from where we live. It's a good 25, 30-minute drive. So whatever, I got in the car with the wife and kid and drove and unfortunately I remembered the hospital wrong, so I put the GPS coordinates in wrong. Ended up driving into the downtown, and then realizing my mistake, having to turn around, drive through dodgy LA streets with potholes and stuff, which is the last thing you want to do when you have acute appendicitis. Anyway, long story short, finally get to the hospital, and here's the second part that really frustrated me, like incredibly frustrated me. As I walked into the ER, went to check in, staff was super friendly and nice, give them my card, insurance card, and they're checking me in, but I said, look, before I check in, can you tell me if, my insurance will cover me in this hospital? I wanted to make sure. They were like, sorry, sir, we can't tell you that information. This is the ER, so we're just here to help. We can help you out and stuff, but we can't tell you whether or not your insurance will cover you in this hospital. I was like, what kind of a system is this? I'm signing in with my medical insurance there, but they can't tell me if I'm going to be covered or not. I see this is the biggest problem with America, the USA, is that medical costs are astronomical. They can bankrupt you. A single night in the ER could wipe out my entire life savings. It's just the way it works here. And so it's kind of important to know whether or not your insurance is going to cover you. And the fact that the lady on the phone from the actual nursing 24-hour thing, she couldn't tell me, and she works for the medical insurance company. She's the numbers on the card. She couldn't tell me what hospitals would cover me. The ER check-in lady is putting me into the computer with she needed my medical insurance card. She needed all my information, everything. She couldn't tell me if I was going to be covered. So I'm walking into this situation where I am in a state where, first of all, I'm in agonizing pain, but I also don't know whether or not I've just made a huge mistake and bankrupted my family. So these were the two most negative things I can pull out of this situation. The rest, I'm going to be honest with you, is all very positive. The professionalism of the nurses and the doctors was top-notch. I do know that when you're being shipped around, you're being treated as a commodity. So, they take you into the waiting area, they give you your IV, they give you your pain medication, they send the different nurses in, the different assistants, the doctors and so on to consult with you and everything. And every step of the way I can see it as kind of a transaction. They're racking up another item to put onto the bill, I see that it's transparent, but at the same time, it's also very efficient and very professional, and everybody was incredibly polite. Another thing that I found very interesting and positive was I felt like I was part of the United Nations or something, going into the United Nations, I should say. Because not only was my surgeon Indian, but the actual assistant that did the surgery itself, because the surgeon just, I guess, kind of stands there in the background and says, you do this, you do that. The assisting attending surgeon, I think they call it, whatever. She was Chinese. There was Mexican nurses, black nurses, white nurses. I had a Greek nurse. There were people from all over the world in this hospital, and it was seeing it all work together was very interesting to me and very cool, and I appreciated that, and I was treated incredibly well. That's really the part that stood out to me, was the fact that they were so polite and looked after me so well. The surgery went off without a hitch. I came out of it feeling as if I'd been beaten up by a sack of doorknobs. I'm not going to lie. I never go to the hospital. I don't take any kind of medication ever, not even over-the-counter painkillers. I don't like medicine and surgery. Since my brother died of surgery at a very young age, I've always avoided hospitals and medicine and doctors and so on, which the irony is I'm married to a doctor and I used to train doctors, but the fact of the matter is I don't take any kind of medication, so all the different I was going to say euthanasia, but I mean anesthetic and all this stuff that they did to me, took it out of me, and I was floored. And I had to stay an additional 2 days in the hospital, so I stayed a total of 3 days and 1 night in the hospital. And I was in and out of fevers the whole time. They couldn't figure out why. They kept taking blood tests to check if I had elevated white blood cells, but my temperature kept going over 100, so it was like 101, 102 type thing, and I kept getting fevers, and then they'd go away, then they'd come back, then they'd go away. Finally, the last fever seemed to break, and I was discharged, and a very friendly Chinese nurse took me down to the parking lot to meet my wife, and I was able to go home. So I've now been home for a day and a bit, and I feel probably about 60 to 70% again, back to my more or less usual self. And that was my experience.
This 1 week made me feel like 1 month long, because it's really difficult. But I 100% agree what my husband just said. The most negative thing is about the insurance system. It's really annoying, and you never know what happened the last moment. But of course, and another way I appreciate the system, a medical system here, is doesn't matter you have no money at all, they will still treat you same like another people. So you don't have to worry about in the situation like China, like if you don't have enough deposit, then they won't get you the surgery or some important medicine, that kind of thing. The medical staff, the doctor and the nurse, they're just so friendly, especially the nurse. They're just so sweet. Because when I, born our baby, wow, that 2 days, they've been super nice to me. They always ask me what I want, what they can help me, and they just really sweet and nice. That's really impressed me. And thank you for watching, and stay awesome and stay healthy as well.